Good morning. I am doing my due diligence this morning and wearing this mask when I'm close to the people in the studio because COVID still exists. And, um, you know, a lot of people kind of are acting like it's not here anymore, but it does. I was exposed to somebody who got it over the weekend, and I just want to really make sure, with Easter coming up, and I want to have some family here. So I'm going to wear my mask here, but then when I go to my mat, I'll take it off so you can hopefully hear me okay. I want to just say, has anybody seen the moon up in the sky? It's 2 nights ago anyway. It was a half moon. And I'm always like, oh, a half moon. I'm always inspired to do the pose of the same name, Ardha Chandrasana. Chandra is moon in Sanskrit. So on the heels of last week where we worked our glutes, guess what? You're going to work them some more. We'll do some other stuff too, but I just think you can't do enough. You can't do enough of this stuff. So we'll go through some stuff that warms you up to get to the place where we can balance and be. So I wanted to say, here we're gonna line up or set up. You have a chair handy, and then have set up two blankets like this. One is long ways in half, and then the other one doesn't matter if you have it however you want to fold it. It's a pillow, and it goes this way. And I don't know where my little towel is. You don't have to worry about this at home. You could also use a cushion, and then you're going to lay in front of it. I just thought, because Lee said she'd been gardening, so I thought, okay, we'll start this way. It doesn't really have much to do with the half moon other than the, opening the front of the body, because gardening is tipped over. So actually it works. So we'll go here. You're sitting on the ground and supporting the curve of the low back. And then your blanket's going to come up and support your head right up to the tops of your shoulders. If you need support under your shoulders, you can pull it under a little bit more. And then take your arms out to the sides, wiggle your pelvis around and lengthen the low back, and then find the perfect place. Then slide your feet away a little bit and let your body kind of settle into this shape. If you want to, you can close your eyes. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So here we are, opening through the front line of the body. Take this off now. And give yourself some time to arrive fully into the space. That means feel your body. This is the time we want the body or the mind to come into the body. Oh, I should say, before you get too comfortable, have a block nearby that you can reach, or don't worry about it and get it whenever we need it. We got to come up off this support anyway, so you can get your block then. So think about half moon. When you see the half moon up in the sky, it's not that it's just a half moon, it's a full moon still, but we just can't see the other half of it. It makes me think, like in life, that sometimes we don't know the whole story. Sometimes we have half the information, or maybe less. And like the old adage about the glass half full or half empty, we all see things differently. Just like to plant that seed for us to be able to have more compassion and understand that people see things differently and come from different places. So even though we're going into half moon, there is no full moon pose. That's another story. Even though there's it's only a half moon, I'd like you to practice the pose with your entire being, expanding and not contracting, because it's easy to contract into your body to hold on for dear life when you're balancing, because it is a balancing pose on one foot. So while you're lying here, just connect with this expansive energy field that is yours. If you feel like it's too much to have the front of the body long and open like this, feel free to put a blanket over you. Feel free to even roll to your side. And just take a few breaths here, just natural breaths. And just notice where your breath is going. Now, as I'm breathing, I can feel there's a little bit of movement in my low back. As I breathe in, my low back gets a little bit lighter at the edge of the blanket. You may or may not find that. I'm just telling you my experience. A little bit of an arch in my back, very subtle. And then as I exhale, I feel like my lower back and my back ribs get a little bit heavier on the blanket. You may have a different experience, kind of guiding you to look for this and see, is it happening on some level? A little bit of an arch on your inhale. And then a little bit of releasing of your low back or the back of the body down into the support on your exhale. Maybe even if you look at the front body, what's happening is on the inhale, your belly expands, maybe. Ideally, that's what we'd like to have happen. It might not happen for you because we do change our breath patterns for survival sometimes. And then it becomes a pattern. And then as we exhale, belly drops into the body. So we have belly expanding, arching of the back on inhale, very subtly. And then on exhale, we have belly dropping, low back dropping, maybe back ribs dropping. So if you don't feel that, let's just take the breath a little bit longer and see if you start to feel it then. So start to extend your inhales a little bit longer, maybe to a count of 2 or 3. And then your exhales the same length. And see if this is happening now more when you extend your breath a little bit. And if it's not, can you find that in your awareness? Can you find how to create that? A little bit of an arching on your inhale. And I say little bit, it is more subtle. And then on the exhale, a little bit of releasing back down, a little bit of toning of your abdomen. Maybe even you feel a sense of toning through the pelvic floor. It's the most subtle, simple level. This is core work. I'm going to just add something on, give you a few more breaths like this. And that subtle toning of your low belly, it's the transversus abdominis that coordinates with the pelvic floor. Good idea to practice feeling awareness in the pelvic floor. Everybody has a pelvic floor. It's all the muscles that are like slings in the bottom of the pelvis. Of course, there's some holes in the slings. So now, next time, I'm gonna talk you through this, but when you're ready, when you hear the instructions, you're gonna inhale, feel the arch of the spine, and then exhale. Don't let your back release, but exhale, keeping your back in that subtly arched position, and exhale. So there's a little bit stronger contraction of the abdomen, pelvic floor perhaps, and then you let it go on your next inhale. Belly rises, back arches, and then exhale. Keep that lift in the low back. It's not a huge arch, it's subtle. And you exhale without letting your back get heavy on your blanket again, or your back ribs dropping into your blanket again. And then at the end of the exhale, you can pause for a moment and then inhale again. So I'm not arching, I'm not going into a big back bend. You might feel your back ribs kind of releasing back into the floor when you start your inhale again, but we're still holding that shape of the lower back. So this is the subtle way to work with core. Anytime we're doing standing poses, that's an element of, especially if we're balancing on one foot. We want to find that we want the body to be supported at the core and the torso. Otherwise, your feet and ankles are going to try to get the stability. The brain is going to tell them they need to become more stable. And that's when things sort of seize up and lock up. And that becomes a repeating pattern. And then you lose ankle and foot mobility. It's true. So we want to learn the most supported places how to work with core. One more breath like this. And then let go of the breath. Come back to natural rhythm. Maybe you can see what it feels like to slide your legs out. If it feels like it's too much of an arch for your low back, then you can bend them up again. We'll just stay here for another few breaths. Natural breath here. Let your legs roll away from each other. Let there be some softness, the back of the body sort of melting into the props. A heaviness. And then maybe you can see how your abdomen moves when you breathe in. Just naturally. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. If the belly can be soft when you inhale, then pelvic floor can be soft when you inhale as well. And therefore, you can have the contrast of it engaging belly and pelvic floor when you exhale. There are also other stabilizing muscles, obviously, but this is a good place to start. Okay, then slowly rebend your legs. We'll roll to the side. One side or the other, doesn't really matter. I'm going to move these things out of the way. This way you can grab a block and a strap. I see a little dog, piece of a dog biscuit that Sawyer didn't get the other day here. So have your block and your strap nearby, right beside you, so you can reach them with your hands. And then come back into the constructive rest pose, again, softening through the front of the hip joints, separating your feet about sit bone distance, maybe as wide as your outer hips, doesn't really matter. Just where it's, I'm going to say comfortable, where it feels easy to be resting on the center of the pelvis, as opposed to dropping your low back into the floor. So if you sort of are chronically in a posterior tilt, which is like this, with your low back dropping into the floor, I'd like you to try to find a more, it's called an anterior tilt, where the front hip bones tip a little bit more forward, and your pubic bone and your front hip bones, the ASIS, are more level. That's kind of one way to check to see how's my pelvis laying on the ground. And then from here, I'd like you to keep your pelvis level. You can even have your hands in the front just to make sure, and start to wave your legs from side to side. So the pelvis isn't moving. So I don't want to call it windshield wipers, because typically that's what happens is your pelvis starts rocking from side to side. But right now it's just your legs. So you're going side to side, like maybe mini windshield wipers that only have a short range of motion. So we're just moving the thigh bones in the hip socket, and you can explore the range of motion that you have, and notice how your core starts to engage to help keep your pelvis still. Yeah, so you can go in and out like windshield wipers, or you can go side to side. So we're waking up an awareness and a movement and action in the hip joint. that we want to have available to us for standing. I'm doing all kinds of courses and trainings on feet and the connection of the feet to the core. It's totally fascinating. Okay, so whatever you were doing, if you're doing side to side like this, like both to the left, both to the right, then drop your knees towards the center and then away from the center. If you were doing this movement, then do the other one. So you're keeping your pelvis level, low back is neutral, and find out which breath might work best with which movement. Try to wake up these muscles. And then come back into the middle and take your strap. Actually, no, we'll do it without first. So you can maybe walk your feet a little bit closer to each other, still keeping your pelvis level. Lift your right leg up and see how long your arms are. So we probably know this already. Can I reach to the back of my thigh and hold on with interlaced fingers without curling my shoulders up, without flattening my low back into the floor? So for today, I can kind of do it. It's a little bit of a stretch. So I'm going to use my strap today. So I'll encourage you to do that too. If you use your strap, you can take it right to the center of the thigh, roll your hands into the strap like this, and then you can anchor your upper arms on the floor so they're steady there. And I'm going to hold my leg in place and do some internal and external rotation. So that, again, this is not coming from the foot. So you're not turning your foot around. You're letting your foot relax and you're turning from your hip. And be aware if you're trying to move your pelvis. So it's those kind of actions. Probably have more external rotation, turning outward than internal, but you know, stranger things have happened. Yeah, just looking to see, can I stay balanced in the center of my pelvis, neutral in my spine, and do this action? And if not, I want to know that, so I know what my limitations are. And then come back into the center, and then we'll go up and down. So we've got a lengthening of the hamstrings when you lift your leg up, and shortening when you bring your leg down. A colleague of mine used to call these leg salutes. So let's add what we want to do with the foot too. So as we go up, let's see, as we go up, flex your foot like this. And as you come down, point your toes. So flexing on the way up. I want to affect that whole chain from my feet up to really my top of the hamstrings. Spread your toes as much as you can when you go up. And then we've got a contraction of the foot, of the calf, the hamstrings, back of the thigh. Okay, one more time. It's not about straightening your leg. If that's available to you, then that's fine. And then stop, come down. You can keep your strap where it is, but here's where it gets a little bit tricky. You're going to take the block now, and you may use the strap, or you may find you can, well, it's a little bit longer, so I'm going to say the strap is probably best. I'm taking the strap across the back of my thigh like this. I'm going to hold it. You can hold it with your calf as you get this set up. And I want to center it in my thigh. And I'm going to pull the strap and the block towards the back of my thigh. So that's what my hands are doing. My arms are doing that. Then my other action is I want to push with my thigh into the block. So I have a push and a pull. Pulling with my hands, pushing with my leg. Then start to take your foot up towards straight. Doesn't have to be straight. And notice where you start to feel the resistance. and pause there. So I want to hold it where I feel I'm being active. So one of the actions here that I'm teaching you is, even though my leg is straight and I'm going into hip flexion, I want to be having space in the front of the hip joint. So I'm pushing my thigh into the block. Think of that as the top of the thigh bone, the head of the thigh bone, the femur, moving away from your body. So wherever you happen to be, where you feel resistance in the back of the leg, you're still centered on the back of your pelvis. Your low back is not dropping into the floor. Yeah. So many rules, huh? And we'll just take another few breaths. Come back to the feeling in your abdomen when you breathe. A lot of stuff going on. Kind of helps to keep you honest here. So this is what we want. Imagine that the leg in the air is the standing leg in Ardha Chandrasana. I'm going to do one more thing while we're here. Keep holding it. Start to do a subtle external rotation. So we're keeping the top of the thigh moving backwards, and a subtle external rotation, whether your leg is bent or not, because we did that when we were laying down. Your knee turns out, and it's subtle, just a subtle little turn. To find that action and hold that there. Notice what you notice here. You know, with my leg almost straight, I feel it a little bit more through my outer leg. With leg bent, you know, probably still a little bit through the IT band area. Okay, and then let's lower down. You can hold on to the block with the back of the calf. Take your hands away, remove the block. Stretch both legs out, just notice. Maybe stretch your arms away. Full body stretch if you want. If you're feeling that you were holding on really tight with a strap, shake your wrists out if you need that. Okay, let's bend legs again. Same thing on the left side. So the strap goes behind, or your hands if you've got long arms, a little longer than your torso, no problem at all. And then we open and close the knee joint. So now that you know what we're going to do with the block, have that in mind a little bit here. The strap is just not just pulling you forward. You're creating that action with your arms, but the action in your leg is to push into the strap. So as you're opening and closing, see what the difference is when you don't do anything other than pull your leg towards you versus pull your leg towards you with your hands and then push the leg into the strap as you open and close the knee. And see what the difference is. Helps to keep my pelvis more level, for sure. And then we can add in the dorsiflex up, plantar flex or pointing down. Waking up the back line of fascia. Half of it really, we're only going up to the top of the leg. But it will be having an effect in the rest of the body. Wherever you go, that's where you go. Does not have to be straight leg. And one more time. And then let's put the block in place. You know, I won't say I lie awake and dream of these things, but I do spend some time. How can I teach people how to do this action? So I kind of put it in the middle of my thigh like this. And I put the block specifically this way because I want it to have this little wobbly, because I want you to really focus on that connection. And then if you need to, you can kind of do a clamp with your back leg or with the calf, and then you hold it. So I'm pulling in with my hands, but I'm going to push out. So I almost have a vertical thigh here, and then up I go. So you can kind of go slowly and find where do you feel the resistance. And the resistance is that feeling of stretch sensation in the back of the leg. Pelvis is level. If you want, you can even take your right leg out, see if that helps do anything. And I'm pulling with the strap, but I'm pressing. The bigger action is, or the action that I really want you to focus on is this action of pressing the thigh away. So it's very easy for the thigh bones to become, during movement, during stability, or when they're supposed to be stable, they will kind of do this jamming in the hip socket, depending on, you know, how you live your life. If you sit a lot, and they can be more stuck forward than back, especially with sitting. So this is one of those things that you could do this every day and help. So wherever your leg is, it doesn't have to be straight or bent. It can be whatever you want, whatever it is. And then wherever it happens to be, let's do that little external rotation. So you're rotating your leg out from the hip socket. So it's not your foot turning, it's your leg, and your knee is pointing out towards the side. Yeah, and then we're holding that. Level pelvis, neutral spine, waking up the muscles that need to do this action, because this is one that we need. Picture this as your standing leg, whether it's bent or not, doesn't matter. Feel that action from in your leg all the way up to your hip, even if the leg is bent. Your leg is bent, you're still probably where you're feeling that stretch sensation. That's what I'm hoping. Notice your core engagement. I've not tipped my pelvis. Check to see if you've kind of rocked your pelvis to the side. Just turn the thigh bone in the hip socket. And then you can come back into the center, bend your leg again. Take the block out, take the strap away, stretch your leg out. Let's do a little bit of a banana here. Walk your legs over to the right. You can keep them there. You can arc your upper body over to the right as well. You can lift your left leg and cross at your ankle. So it's crossing over your left or your right ankle. You can also hold on to your left wrist. I'm looking for you to stay fairly level through the front body. So notice if the left side of the body is rolling away from the floor, and roll it back down. I can use my wrist, my right hand, to pull my left wrist, and my ankles, that connection there, I can pull my ankles away. So I'm lengthening the whole outer line of the body. This is more than we need for half moon. So we do more than we need so we can get what we need with ease. Notice how you breathe here. Okay, let that go. Come back in the center, pause for a moment, see what it feels like. You don't have to hold on to your wrist. You don't have to take your arms overhead. That's kind of, if that's available to you, then that's what you can do. That's where you can go. I feel way longer through the left side of my body, and I feel more contracted, like pulled in towards my hip on the right side. So now feet and legs go over to the left. You can cross at your ankles. So the right leg, we cross over the left. And then I use my elbows, my upper arms, and I kind of walk my upper body over. So I'm in a big banana shape. And then my arms come up overhead. But again, do what you can, do what serves your body, and stay away from anything that feels like joint pain. You can little squeeze at your ankles, pull your feet away, lengthening through your wrist. Roll the right side of the body back down towards the floor if you're finding that it's rolling away. And even though we're lengthening the right, shortening the left, we don't want to feel like we're compromising the left side. So find as much length as you can on the left. Okay, and come back into the center, stretch everything out. And then take your time. You can roll onto your side and come up. We're going to get them into table pose, so you might need some support under your knees. You can decide that. Look, dust bunnies everywhere. So in table pose, I know I'm always going to say, in any pose, look to your foundation. So the foundation, when we are lying on our backs, or our feet, pelvis, upper back, and head. So here, that was pretty easy to line that up. Here, it requires a little bit more care placing your hands, because now your hands are like feet. So we want to place them in a way that there's no compromise at the wrist, and that you're able to get as much of I'm going to say the outer surface, so the fingers and the outer surface, but allow the center of the palm to stay light, kind of like we did with the low back. So press into your fingerprints, press into your thumb, your whole thumb, and your whole index finger. And it's a gentle press, not pushing in and locking. It's just like, feel like you can put a little bit more weight there. And then let's go into some cat and cow. So however you want to do it. Cow is forward with the sway back, and then cat is rounding. I go forward and back because I feel like I can access more of my whole spine than when I'm just in the middle and focusing on just my upper back. So that's me. I want you to feel what you need to in your back. I'm giving you some options. You might even walk your knees a little further back so that you can even go into hip extension as part of your extension. We can reinvent things all the time, movements that work. What do you need right now? Do you need to hold it in one place? And then come back into the center. If your knees were walked back, walk them back to where they feel more central underneath your hips. And then take your right leg and reach it back with your toes tucked under. You can spend a moment here pressing back through your heel to release your calf. You feel that in your calf? If you feel it more in the back of your knee, and maybe soft little subtle bend in the knee, to take it out of the knee and move it into your calf. We still have the connection of the hands to the floor. And then come back to where you feel more neutral again. Keep your right leg back there still. I've got my left toes tucked under, but you can totally put your foot flat at the top of the foot if that's an available choice for you. So now we got to get the leg off the ground, but it's got to come from support through the core first. So take a breath here. And find the same connection. Remember, we had the little arch in the back in your inhale. And then on exhale, we resisted letting that release. So your exhale, It's that same kind of toning in the abdomen and pelvic floor. Now we're going to hold that and allow the body to still breathe in this shape, or you're going to let your rib cage move in and out to the sides as you breathe in and out, staying toned in the abdomen. So now see what that feels like to engage your leg as if, so this is as if you're going to lift it, but your leg is extremely heavy and it won't lift off the ground. So you're not lifting from your foot, you're not lifting from your knee. Put your awareness right up into your, yes, buttocks. Feel your whole leg start to become part of the chain that's going to lift your leg up. Not just your leg, but your spine as well. So we've got the abdomen engaged, pelvic floor engaged, and we're still breathing. Now your leg just got a little lighter and you can lift your toes off the ground. And then bring it up so that you feel like it's in line with your body. And you're going to hold it there. And take a few breaths, holding your leg in place. Feeling balanced, as balanced as you can on two hands and one knee, one foot. Now, keep that. Shift your weight into your right hand and come onto your left fingertips. So you're creating less foundation. You know where I'm going with this, right? Yep. So we don't want to disturb anything. And if you think you're not sure, you can always, this is a great little practice too. Put the block right in the center of the pelvis. And then see, can you take your left arm forward? It doesn't have to be like right up beside your ear. It can be out to the side. Just whatever works for you. And then I'd like you to slowly bring your hand towards the floor and your right toes towards the floor and lift them back up. So we're not doing this from the back, the low back. We're not arching to get that to happen. I want you to, if you have the block on your pelvis, you're noticing, how steady it is. Another movement that I'd like you to play with is abduction. So moving your arm and leg away from the center line of the body. Notice if you're sinking into your right shoulder. Remember, the same as the hip joint. We want to stay lifted and out of the joint. And then you can also cross the midline. So adduction. You don't have to do it for very long. Just enough to go, okay, that's hard work. And then come back to hands and knees. I'm going to keep the block on my pelvis because I kind of like it. I'm going to go the other side now. So think about, if you know what half moon is or know what some of these poses are that, I give you to challenge you. What is your relationship with them in terms of glass half full or glass half empty? So we're holding it here. We're going to do the stretch the calf first. I'm going to tune into how to engage through the core. Leg gets heavy. Not quite lifting, but as if you were about to lift. And then allow your leg to be lifted. Let it come from your buttocks. You can come to your right fingertips. Lift your left leg up more or less in line with your spine. So the back leg of Ardha Chandrasana is doing this. It is in line with the body. It's exactly in this alignment. It's not turning out. It's the bottom leg that has the turnout. Then you can come to your right fingertips, stretch out, kind of play with some of those movements. At some point, both legs will have to be the bottom leg and the top leg. We're finding when there's core involvement needed, how much mobility do you have? How much strength do you have? Okay, and then come back to the center and bring it down. You can take the block off if you have the block there. Either walk your hips back, knees and hips back, and come into half downward dog. If you want some weight off of your wrists, you can even bring your forearms down, forehead down, or you can come right into a downward dog. So something symmetrical. So your relationship with these poses that I bring to you to challenge you. Do you have like, yeah, I love to be challenged? Or is it like, oh my goodness, how long is she going to make us hold this? Or how many times do we have to do that pose? You know, how do you approach challenge in your life? Half full, half empty, half moon, full moon. I can still see the whole film. I know the whole moon is there. Okay, now I'm going to up the stakes a little bit. Which way do I want to go? Come back into table. Take your left leg. No, so we started with right, so we got to go this way. Take your right leg back, like we did. While you're here, you're going to spin on your left leg. So I'm taking my left foot. So this is an internal rotation of my hip joint, and I'm taking my foot behind me. Then you can keep your right or your left hand where it is. Turn so you're here. So your left hand is on the ground, really important, especially in this position, to have that awareness with your hand and the action that keeps your wrist safe. And you've turned your body to the side. Imagine you have the wall behind you that you can lean your whole body back into. So you have connection back of the neck, upper back, and back of the pelvis. Now find the same awareness to engage through your core here. A little subtle arch in the spine if that helps you. And then on exhale, toning through the abdomen, low belly, it's down here in pelvic floor. Your right leg is going to be heavy, but as if you wanted to lift it, start to prepare it for lifting. It's heavy. And then you're now lifting from the side. So this is gluteus medius. Lifting from the side. Bring your leg up more or less in line with your body. So this is a mini half moon. How are you restricted here? Notice that this top leg is in line with your body, more or less. It's not turning up, it's not turning down. The outside edge is lifting towards the ceiling. You can, if you want, take your top arm up. If you can see it, it looks like it's in line with your other arm, you can go up. Okay. Just notice the work here. Lifting this back leg, that's this hip. Okay, let's come down. Have to do a mini half moon. Okay, other side. Set up your hands. Nice thing with this is we do one hand and we do the other. But if you're finding there's pressure in your hand, look to see where it is. Typically, it will be in the outer wrist. So if that's the case, lighten the outer wrist by making the inner wrist heavy, the thumb and index finger, make them heavier. Okay, so left leg back. Rotate your right leg. So it's an internal rotation. Your spine and pelvis are moving too. Set up your hand where you feel you have some support. It's not going to be directly over. Have it be on a little bit of an angle. Okay, here we are in, it's like a side plank modification. I want to first establish space. So lengthen my spine and space and pretend there's a wall behind you that you're laying into. How are you going to engage through your core? Left leg is heavy. Feel the heaviness of it, but feel like you have a desire to lift it, but it's too heavy. And then lift it. Lift it while it's heavy. Something else to play with here is to allow your right hip to shift towards your right elbow. And then shift it away. So shifting this way and then away. It's this away that I want you to focus on. Maybe top arm comes up. You're lifting the whole outer edge of your left leg up. Where's your head in relationship to the rest of your spine? And then slowly come back down. And that's it. You'll be happy to know that's it, Lee, for hands and knees. Downward dog, half downward dog, child's pose, anything symmetrical. What is it that you need right now after those poses? So whatever pose you're in, make your way into downward dog, some version of downward dog, just temporarily, because we're going to walk our hands back towards our feet. Your knees will probably have to bend. You might even have to go wider on your mat with your feet. But I'd like you to get to where the place that you can lower your heels to the floor. Keep your heels on the floor, walk your hands forward without lifting your heels, and just stay wherever that is. It's kind of a hybrid between a downward dog and a forward bend, where you're lengthening through the back. And then walk your hands back in. Then come on up. We'll take the ball. Just do a little releasing through the sole of the foot. Everybody okay? You survived the half moon, the quarter moon. Is a half moon a quarter moon? It can be whatever we want it to be. So pick a foot, any foot. You can go soft. You can start to go a little bit firmer. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I do want to release this because, you know, it's all part of the back chain, the supporting line. I already did a pretty good job with mine this morning. Also, you know, when you get to like the forefoot, the front part of the foot, really great idea to allow your bones to kind of spread. The bones through the foot right here. See if you can get them to widen over the ball, kind of like arch over the ball. The closer your toes are together, the less stable you will be in life. The more you can get your toes to spread apart, the bones of the foot to spread apart, the more the muscles will be able to actually function and pull on the bones to make them do what they need to do. Okay, second foot. I do highly recommend toe separators, is to wear them throughout your day for various time periods. Notice you kind of are standing on one foot. You're not relying on the foot that you're rolling. You're relying on the other leg. So how is that leg positioned? Is it getting fatigued? What part of your leg or hip is getting fatigued? Kind of doing a little bit of training here. Just creating some awareness and connection to the back of the body. Okay, so then let's put that aside. And let's come into Trikonasana. So take, let's use the chair. If you know you don't need the chair, so what I'm looking for, I've got the dog treat in my foot. I'm looking for, I say the chair because I really want there to be space. And if you aren't able to straighten your front leg, then if you can keep your front leg straight when you go into Trikonasana, triangle pose, and your spine long and not curved, then you can use a block or blocks. But I like the chair because it's going to help us have some space. So I've got my right foot forward here. My left leg is turned out. You know, sometimes we'll hear right heel to right to left heel, something like that. It's a rough estimate. It's think of it as a starting point, and then you can decide. Toes out to the side is also a starting point, but you might need these toes turned more forward to get to where we need to be. And where we need to be is this front leg needs to face forward. So I want to start with that. What do I need to do to get my front leg? So I might need to turn my back toes in more to get this leg to go here. What I don't want to do is feel like I'm ripping my pelvis apart like that. So I've got this here so that I know when I go this way, this is the action. So come back to what we were doing at the very beginning. We had the block at the back of the leg. You were moving your leg towards straight and moving it backwards. So I want the top of the thigh to move that way. Does that make sense? At the same time, I want to add in that little bit of an external rotation because the tendency here is for this leg to roll inward because that's the path of least resistance. So you're pushing your thigh back and it's not your knee back. Remember how you pushed into the block? Have that awareness. That's why I put the block there. As if you have the block there, you're pressing that back and then doing this rolling, little bit of a rolling in the hip joint. It's very subtle. Then come forward. So your spine is long, bring your hand to the seat of the chair. If this is still too low, you're gonna go as high as you need to go to keep your front leg straight. That's where I wanna go with this. And maybe your hand is on a block instead of the chair. So I've got thigh moving back, I've got external rotation, it's the same thing. Now I want to kind of find that in core engagement again. So I arched my back, or I allowed a little arch in the inhale. And then as I exhale, I don't release it. And I draw my low belly in way down here, not because I'm trying to do it, just because it does it. Then rotate away from your front leg and your front arm. So I'm rotating my torso towards the left. Notice that your front leg probably wants to start turning in. So that's where you have to really tune in to that action of externally rotating the front leg. This is kind of like almost a half moon because we've got a hand and a leg in the front and a leg in the back. The difference is this is the opening here in triangle pose. So just stay here. Whether your arm goes up or not is really doesn't matter to me. If you feel you can extend better by lifting your arm up, that's why it goes up. The arm is not what turns you. So if your arm goes up, it's because you've already done the turning. And then the arm goes up because then you want the lift. Okay, breathe. Imagine there's a wall behind you can lean your body back into. Your left shoulder blade goes back towards the wall behind you. Your right shoulder blade is moving away from the wall behind you. One more breath. Okay, rotate back down. You can come out of the pose however you want. You can step back. You can slowly come up. And we'll go to the other side. So I'll switch sides just so I can still face front. Now we got left foot forward, right back. And it's not a huge step. It's not a big stance. It's big enough. But adjust, look to see how your heels are lined up. What do you need to adjust? Look to see where your foot position is. The number one starting point is this leg. I need to have it face this way so I can create that action of rolling out. So create that action in the front leg. And then as you come forward over your front leg, think of your whole pelvis rolling over the top of the femur. So the movement is here, not in your low back. Then hand to the seat of the chair. Your body's forward. Can you still keep this rolling? Press down and lift up and create space. So come as high as you need to. You can bring your hand to your waist and then roll your torso. It's a rolling, a turning of your torso towards the right, away from your leg, your front leg. Notice here, my head was in line with my spine. My head needs to stay in line with my spine. What I don't want to do is turn and look backwards. So I'm keeping my head in line with my spine. I've got core engagement. And then maybe, if you've got the turning, then reach up and create the lift. Really tune into your front leg. Now we don't have as much weight bearing on the front leg as we will in half moon. It's coming up very soon. That action of thigh back and rolling out is very, very important in the pose. Okay, slowly come back out. Come out of the pose, whichever way works for you. Okay, questions, comments? Let's go into Prasarita Padottanasana, exactly what Lee's doing. So you can have your chair or your blocks in front of you, go sideways on your mat. Check to see you've got your toes lining up, your heels lining up. And again, the direction of your feet depends on your knees. So we want to be able to bend here and bend the knees in the same direction as the center of the ankle. So what I don't want are my feet turned in and my knees going off that way, or my feet turned out and my knees going forward. I want them to be in the same line. And so then you can bend your knees. Again, pelvis rolls over the tops of the thigh bones. Notice if your knees inner thighs start to move towards each other. As you start to roll forward, press your inner thighs away from each other and stay rooted in your outer feet. Then hands to the seat of the chair. You can go forearms, you can go blocks, you can come to the floor. Depends on your body. What do you need? I kind of like hands to the floor and head on the chair. So now stay. I'm keeping you in extension. So spinal extension, remember the difference between extension and flexion? Means the front of the body is long in extension. The back of the body is not rounding. You're not necessarily keeping all the same curves, but you're close to them as a neutral spine. So wherever that happens to be. So we've got symmetry here. If your legs are straight, have some awareness as to where your sit bones are in relationship to your heels. Are they behind your heels? Or can they be in line with your heels? Okay, 2 breaths more. Inner thighs press out. Tops of the thighs press back. Slowly make your way up. Notice where your core engagement is to bring you back up. We always have that support here first, then move. Your ankles and your feet won't have to work so hard. You will maintain mobility there. So back to the first side. This time, maybe not quite so close to the chair. I'm going to be a little bit further away, as if I don't have to have a big stance because this leg is going to be lifting up, but I want to feel like it's the same kind of action. I'm standing here, top of my thighs moving that way. This leg is rotating to the right. Then I'm going to lean forward on that leg, maybe bend it. so that I can reach forward and plant my hand. So my hand is going to go a little bit to the right of my right foot. So not in line with my foot, to a little bit to the right. So think of how we did triangle. We rotated the body away from the arm and the leg. So you can do that now with this leg bent. Remember the action, rotating. When we were in our half moon, I said, your leg is really heavy. So as if you wanted to lift your back leg, just start to prepare it. Where is it going to lift from? Right up here. Keeping this leg in line with your body, start to lift it off the floor. I love how yoga teachers say, float it off the floor. We're lifting against gravity. There's no floating. Then see if there's room to straighten your front leg. Keep rotating your front leg towards the right. Rotate your body towards the left. Keep your left leg with you. So the outer edge of your leg is lifting towards the ceiling. Then maybe the top arm lifts, just like in triangle. And then you create more length, more lift. You can flex your left foot and lift right up from your hip through the whole outer line of your leg to your outer heel. Okay, let's come back down. Land, come off the chair. You know, repetition is the mother of skill. Did you know that? One more time after this. So set up. The main things, if you haven't figured it out, are core engagement, rotating this front leg. I haven't even talked about the 3 points of the foot. That's also part of it. I wanted to add this stuff in on top. So the 3 points, big toe base, baby toe base, center of the heel. Rotate this leg to the left. As you come forward, top of the thigh moves back. And you shift support. Now, can I find core engagement? Remember how we found it? Inhale, little arch to the back. Exhale, keep that subtly engaged as you exhale and allow your abdomen. Oh, I shouldn't be so close. So the front leg is bent. My mistake. Then start to shift forward. Your back leg is heavy. It wants to lift, but you really have to find where you're going to be the most efficient, and it's lifting from up here. Then you can lift it. Flex your foot. Instead of turning your right leg out, turn your body away from your left arm and your left leg and move your left leg towards straight. Go higher if you can't quite get your leg straight. Come back down and revisit the 3 points of your left foot, big toe base, baby toe base, center of your heel. If you've turned sufficiently, then lift your arm and create more lift. Think of spreading the whole pose out. Think of the whole moon here. Half is represented, but the whole moon is still there. There's more hidden. Okay, slowly come out. How do you feel?
I can hear my spine popping back into place.
Ah, in the pose?
No, coming out.
Coming out, okay. Okay, one more time. Now, if you found, the chair is what I need, that's the right height, keep the chair. You're more than welcome to take the chair away and go for a block. I want you to do it as this last final time and see if you can move into it with lots of awareness. So it's kind of like this, lots of awareness of how you're shifting, how you're engaging, how you're moving into the pose. Maybe you have to be higher. Maybe you're lower. If you go lower, your leg can go higher. Maybe. Look at the shape. It's like a really big triangle pose. So when you're ready, right foot forward, start moving into the pose without me saying all that stuff. Where are you going to get your stability from? So Mary, you can start lifting your outer heel. So if you wanted to bring your outer heel up towards the ceiling, play with lifting your leg higher and see what happens, see what it feels like. Play also with your standing leg. We tend to put a lot more weight into the front of the foot. So see, what does it feel like to have a little bit more rooted anchor in your heel? And maybe your bottom fingers float. Float, hover, wrong word. Then come out when you're ready. It's a long time to hold it, but wow, what steadiness. Second side. It's another way to do it. If you want to try a block or block tower, just, since we're doing a second version or another turn at it, you put your foot on the chair or the back of the chair. So you can be here. I want to set up this leg. Gives me the support. I'm not lifting the leg. I'm not having to work this, but I can work with this information here, this support. But I can also go, okay, what if I took my foot off the chair? This is not necessarily steady. Keep that in mind, that this was going to really ask you to stay supported. Let's say maybe like this. It's going to ask you to really stay supported on your standing leg. I'll have a peek as you're playing. Only stay as long as you need to. The action of the front leg is probably the most important action. That's the thigh back and externally rotated. Otherwise, you've got all your body weight compressing that hip joint. It's not going to like that. Over time, it will not like that. Okay, and come out when you're ready. Let's do a standing forward bend so we've got symmetry. Maybe here, can be on blocks, can be on the floor. So the standing forward bend has spinal flexion this time. So that means rounding in the low back, mid back, upper back, away from your pelvis. Legs do not have to be straight. We want to do a little bit of releasing through the outer hip. Stay here for another couple breaths. And then stay longer if you like. When you're ready, make your way up. Find support from the core. Anytime you're shifting from a greater base of support, like right now you've got 2 feet, 2 hands, maybe, and then you go to just 2 feet, you want to make sure you know how your core is going to help you through that transition. Otherwise, your back will do it, other muscles will do it, and that can create a whole bunch of other problems. So 2 ways we can do a Sukhi Randrasana or a figure 4. You can come up here, or you can do this laying on the ground, this one where you bring your legs in. If you have a wall nearby, this is actually my favorite, to come to the wall and cross here. Then I can stay really neutral in my spine, and I don't have to use my hip flexors to hold it here. So this is releasing this outer hip right here. The gluteus muscles. Piriformis is also a stabilizer, a hip stabilizer. Core, those core muscles, so it's the pelvic floor, the transversus abdominis, that's the muscle we've been focusing on. But there's also the diaphragm as part of it, and also muscles along the spine called the multifidus, like a cylinder. So that will help all the peripheral parts of the body to be more stable. We create stability in the hip. We need stability and mobility in the hip joints. So stay as long as you like on one side. Do this on a chair too. Move my block tower before it falls. There's another way. So many ways. Neutral spine, neutral pelvis. You can bring this closer. But as I come closer, what I don't want is what's happening right now, my low back flattening into the floor. It might move in that direction, but I want to resist it. And then when you're ready, you can go to the second side. It's gotten really windy and rainy, I think, too. I think so. And if this isn't where you need the release, can you figure out what your body needs? Where is it feeling fatigued? I'm going to say probably here because these muscles were working. For sure, the gluteus medius. I'd like you to also put on your inquiring minds and let me think about what you might like to do for the final 2 weeks of the session. Because I might just do more glute work if I don't hear from you. When you are ready, you can let that go. If there's something else symmetrical, like drawing your legs into your body or another forward bend or a downward dog, what's needed to help you lie still and quiet in your resting pose, in your balancing pose, balancing in a different way. We're balancing physically, but balancing in terms of mind, body, heart, nervous system. Here, legs up on a chair, so easy and nice. Maybe you have some support for your head or not. You can decide. So many options, and if you don't know, let me know. I got a lot of options up my sleeves. Even though my sleeves are short. I can drive you back, Brad. Once you're settled in, I'm taking you a little bit late. Well, maybe not that late. It's 10:13. My other clock is slow. And keep yourself warm. Position, reposition. Be comfortable here. There's no need for work or effort anymore. Once again, let your mind rest in the awareness of your body. Hear the sound of my voice. And please know that you can stay right where you are longer. You don't have to finish the class sitting. You don't have to sit together and bow. I know we're together, we're connected. And I know that you are able to or interested in doing what you need, serving yourself. That's why you come to this yoga stuff. So as you're shifting, if you're shifting, or as you're laying there, just contemplate, do you see a half moon or do you see a full moon? Do you see a glass half empty or a glass half full? And what does that mean for you? What does it mean for others? How do you approach life? Do you always have all the information with what you're observing? Does an observation become a judgment because maybe you don't have all the information? So thank you for joining me, and thank you for those who were affected by, being in the studio or not being in the studio. I just want to keep everybody safe and fingers crossed that COVID doesn't come here. Thank you. Have a great Easter weekend, everybody. Peace.